Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Black Agenda Podcast. As always, I'm your co-host, Devin Dito, and we have again with us is Adrian, my co-host, Adrian Guest. And as always, we're here again Saturday at 4 o'clock to bring you all of the biggest news from this past week. And so Adrian, a lot of news again this week, but we're going to start, of course, with the biggest news, which is the health of the president of the United States, which is Donald Trump. So President Trump is back in the White House this week. He returned, I believe, on Monday. And so there were some questions there as far as whether he was actually healthy. We saw the president, Adrian, we saw him take this, kind of a joyride around Walter Reed and wave to supporters. And a lot of people, criticized that because he could have been putting, Secret Service agents at risk because Donald Trump is contagious. He did test positive for COVID-19. So, but the president is back in the White House this week. He's back working in the West Wing, as they say. And he's been active this week, especially on Twitter. He's put out a few videos. Interestingly enough, in these videos, Trump even said that he believed this was a blessing almost, and that he was cured of coronavirus by all of these different drugs that he was taking. It's quite a list. I mean, he was taking remdesivir. He's got this experimental antibody cocktail from a company called Regeneron. He's got dexamethasone, which is a corticosteroid. All of these things he's taking, which are, to me, Adrian, at least seems like these are things given to somebody who had a pretty serious COVID-19 virus. Mm-hmm. So it's really crazy to me that the president is now trying to spin it to say that he's got the virus, he's cured, quote unquote, even though we don't have a cure. And he's trying to spin this as some kind of tough guy moment. I don't think it's working, but some people are questioning whether Donald Trump really is healthy.
Yeah, Devin, I think you're right. I don't believe this is healthy marketing or good marketing or anything, because, before you were talking about him saying, don't let this dominate you. And, don't let it ruin your life. I survived and I made it through. And that's not at all the case, because there's a lot of people who, young and old, that have died from this. And it's not that everyone's got the care and the access to health care that the president of the United States gets. So I think he's one of a handful of people who even got this experimental drug. And when you look at this experimental drug, Devin, they may not want you to know, viewers, but it actually did, come from fetal tissue from an abortion. And when you have the Republicans who always talk about, you shouldn't do abortions, always talk about choice, pro-life, it's so two-faced for him to get this sort of drug, because the cells derived from, looks like a kidney from an elective abortion that was performed in the Netherlands in the 1970s. So it's just kind of appalling on that front, and appalling to even say that it's a blessing, because it's not like this was a miracle disease where you come out with superpowers or something like that. I mean, we've got people who have died. We've got businesses who have shut down, never going to come back again. We've got families who've been disrupted, children who can't go to school. I mean, to say that this is a blessing, to say that you've been cured when there's no vaccine, it's just them trying to use marketing and messaging to deflect from the fact that Donald Trump has handled this situation very horribly. I mean, you've got a president who's kind of almost a super spreader. When you look at the event that they had nominating Judge Amy Coney Barrett. So it's just really crazy, Devin, that you've got all of these things going on when you should be having a president talking more about the stimulus talks, talking more about how we get our schools back open, how we get our lives kind of back to normal. But rather, you've got someone who's saying that, you should just, don't let it dominate you. Everybody should get this same medication. And I don't know, Devin, it's just really crazy to me that we've got the leader of the free world almost, flouting a virus around, getting so many different people sick.
Yeah, I mean, but this is Trump's MO. There were conversations last week when he did get sick. People were saying you shouldn't wish death upon him. Which nobody is doing now, but we also probably don't really feel sorry for him because it's one of those things he
Mm-hmm.
was kind of asking for it. You know, the White House itself, people don't understand, like the White House is literally under attack by coronavirus. Right now, we're looking at least 34 people who've been close to the White House have tested positive for COVID-19, including Donald Trump himself, the First Lady. Chris Christie is still in the hospital. People aren't even talking about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, he's
So
got asthma.
he does, and he's been in the hospital all week. So we're hoping he's gonna be okay. But this thing is no joke. It's not a blessing by any stretch of the imagination. But the White House is under siege. Our government is in a way under siege by this virus, and it's taking people. Even if they don't die, they're having to quarantine, for a week or so. So it takes them out of their role. And what really tells you that the White House was pretty loose with their restrictions was that even Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell came out this week and said that he had been avoiding the White House for the past couple months because of the way the lax rules around social distancing and mask. So if the Majority Leader Mitch McConnell can see that the president and the White House were too lax for him, then what's the message that's being sent to the rest of Americans who are watching the president flaunt it and say, well, you don't have to wear a mask and don't let it dominate you and all these things? We understand it's a serious disease, but it's not a sniffle either. So it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not at all. I mean, you got Dr. Fauci who called that White House Rose Garden ceremony a super spreader event. I mean, this isn't hearsay. This isn't us trying to demonize or vilify the president. This is facts and science coming out and saying that the decisions of Donald Trump don't make any sense. I mean, you've got a guy who tested positive for coronavirus. When he got home and got on the stairs, the first thing he did was took his mask off. It's like, what are you, a tough guy? I mean, it's just, I don't understand. I mean, even if you look at Putin, like we talked about, I mean, even he's been in his residence. I mean, even he's more intelligent than our president. And that's sad to say. I mean, I think, Devin, all of this just leads to the fact that Donald Trump is pretty unhinged. I think he knows that, he's kind of on a sinking ship, kind of knows that his time in the White House is very limited. There's been so many reports, I think that which we didn't talk about, but there was one to come out talking about how he got borrowed some money right before the campaign and how that may have funded his campaign. So, I mean, he's on a sinking ship, viewers, and that's why he's doing a lot of these different things, like calling on the Fox News and doing hour-long interviews or 2-hour-long interviews or doing something with Rush Limbaugh. It's crazy. Why not be the president and actually address the American people on a unbiased platform where you're actually telling people the truth about how you feel and your health, telling people about the truth about what you're going to do to get us out of this pandemic. But instead, he wants to try to say that we need to be prosecuting former President Obama, prosecuting Hillary Clinton still because of her emails. I mean, I thought we had, done that, and I thought we were done with that, Devin. Why are we still talking about these emails when we've got over 215,000 Americans who died?
Yeah, I mean that's Donald Trump. I mean, I think he's trying to revert back to the playbook that he used in 2016 to win, although he might want to realize that Hillary Clinton is not running. I think even this week, Mike Pompeo went on Fox News and said they're going to be releasing some of her emails, but it's like, again, Hillary Clinton is not the candidate right now.
She's not even in office anywhere.
She's not. So who does that benefit? And I think, like you say, Donald Trump is unhinged, and so everyone has noticed, but including people on Capitol Hill have noticed. So what's happened here is now on Thursday, Nancy Pelosi, who is the House Speaker, actually announced that Democrats plan to introduce a bill that will create a commission to evaluate the president's mental and physical health in a time of crisis. And the reason for this is, like you say, Pelosi believes that Trump's COVID medication, in particular that dexamethasone, has him in sort of an altered state. And so in order for this to get even done, I mean, they're talking about possibly invoking the 25th Amendment, which would remove Trump from office. Now, that's not likely to happen because this would take not only the House but the Senate to approve this before this even happens. But the simple fact that they are even talking about possibly removing him because of his behavior lets you know just how erratic and out of control and unhinged that he really looks. I mean, it's gotten to a point now, it's not only dangerous to him, but it's dangerous for the rest of the country because you don't know what you're going to get, hour to hour, day to day. I mean, we're going to talk about later, we're actually right now, the stimulus talk. So Trump has really been all over the board with this. On Tuesday night, he tweeted that stimulus talks are over, done with. He informed his people that they don't want to do it. And then the next thing we know, not even an hour later, Trump starts tweeting that he would sign the bills if they were in piecemeal. So one bill for checks, one bill for airline aid, and then another one for PPP loans. And so that came about on Wednesday. Now we have the White House negotiating again with Nancy Pelosi. And now the White House has offered a $1.8 trillion stimulus deal to the Democrats. But Nancy Pelosi has already said today that's not happening. They're still holding strong on this $2.2 trillion bill that the Democrats have. And all of this really is all for naught because Senate Republicans don't want to pass it. And it's really strange to me. Donald Trump is out there saying, I want more stimulus. He wants more stimulus than what the Democrats and Republicans are talking about right now, not even realizing that Mitch McConnell on Capitol Hill has no interest at all in really passing any more spending bills. So, Adrian, he's all over the map. I mean, some people will say, well, Donald Trump, negotiates for a living. I don't know what kind of negotiation strategy this is, but it'd be pretty darn hard to negotiate with somebody who's as erratic as he appears to be.
Yeah, they definitely don't teach this to you in school. So maybe he his dad or something. I don't know.
Okay, from Trump University.
Yeah, that's right. Trump. That's right. One thing, viewers, let's not be surprised in these last few months what Donald Trump might do. In 2011 and 2012, he actually tweeted, at President Obama, he might start a war with Iran to get reelected. And, we keep waiting for this October surprise or this bombshell. And we know that, Donald Trump did pull us out of that Iran nuclear deal, which has kind of, stirred a lot of escalations based on what experts are saying. So who knows what could happen? I don't think there's been any talks about that, but I wouldn't put it I wouldn't put it past Donald Trump, especially on all these drugs and especially with him trying to win re-election. He's already talked about, the election being rigged. He's already disrupted the Postal Service with his, Postmaster General. He's already started this campaign to get states to elect their own electors rather than, following our votes. So I don't really know, Devin. I'm hopeful that our country is going to just rise up and just really just, vote him out. But, we got to remember that, in 2016, he kind of did the same playbook against Hillary Clinton with it being rigged. And I'm just like, even if he wins, I guess that would make him an illegitimate president because apparently the system is rigged. So I don't think he even understands the strategy he's even putting out, because it would basically be allowing the Democrats to also do the same thing he's going to probably try to do, which is contest the election because apparently it's all rigged. So, viewers, before we go to our break, we wanted to kind of ask you a question. Do you think the president will be able to change in the last few months of his term in order to get us out of this mess? And if you do or don't think that, just tell us why or why not. We'd love to kind of hear your thoughts. We have our thoughts and our opinions on it, but we'd love to get your interaction. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this first segment up. We're going to do our first little break here, and then we'll catch you on the next side.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So we're going to kind of get into the other big news from this past week, which was there was a vice presidential debate that happened on Wednesday between California Senator Kamala Harris and President Mike Pence. And so we kind of got to see Adrian. Finally, we got to see Kamala Harris in action, really kind of trying to explain and make the case against Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and why a Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration would be better for the country. And so, some of my takeaways, I thought honestly it was probably pretty even. Some people may not agree with that, but I thought they both kind of, landed some lines and some punches and took some as well. But I think it was definitely obvious both of them evaded a lot of questions. There were a whole lot of questions that just simply were ignored and not answered. The moderator I didn't think was the strongest because she seemed very nice, but she didn't seem like she was willing to really prod and poke them and get them to answer the questions. But there were some moments. There weren't many fireworks, but there were some moments in particular when Kamala Harris was asked pretty directly about court packing and whether they would pack the Supreme Court if Amy Coney Barrett was put on the bench, and then if they won the election. She simply didn't answer. They haven't come up with a good way of answering that question. She also tried to invoke Abraham Lincoln not filling a Supreme Court justice seat when he came up for re-election. But then also Pence didn't answer a question as far as, what were they going to do? What was the Trump administration going to do as far as pre-existing conditions in healthcare? I mean, it's pretty obvious they don't have a healthcare plan. I mean, it's that simple. He simply just didn't answer the question. And then he also, this is an interesting question. The moderator asked about what each of them would do in their home state if Roe versus Wade were struck down. And Kamala Harris, of course, said that they would, try to and give people still the rights that they had as far as having the right to do what they want with their body. Mike Pence, no answer. No answer at all as far as what he would do with Indiana. We know he's very pro-life, anti-abortion, but we're going to have to be obvious. The majority of the country is in favor of Roe versus Wade. So kind of on the wrong side on there. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty boring debate. It was funny watching all of Kamala's faces and everything, with them being separated by plexiglass. It was kind of interesting to watch that. And I thought it was a good debate. I didn't think either one really messed up. There were no moments. So for the Biden team, that's a win. I mean, the race doesn't change, honestly. I mean, it's the Trump people who need to win because they're the ones who are behind.
Devin, that's a sad part about American politics right now, that, it's a good moment as long as they don't, do some sort of gaffe or, some sort
that's
of.
That's
it. Yeah, that's all they got to do. But, it was interesting because somebody was noting the fact, I can't remember what commentator on MSNBC was noting the fact that, when you look at Donald Trump, you look at Joe Biden, either candidate that wins, they're pretty old. So the vice president really needs to kind of show themselves to be comfortable for Americans to accept as president, essentially, because not to say that something's going to happen, but hey, they are old. I mean, something could happen. You could have a heart attack or whatever. So when you reflect on, did Kamala Harris or Mike Pence make you feel comfortable enough to be president? I would say no. I don't really think. I mean, obviously, I'm going to vote, for one way or the other, but I don't feel that either of them made a compelling point to say, okay, this is what our administration is all about. This is what we're going to try to do. I think that Senator Harris, she's walking a very tight rope because she's got to be strong, but not too strong because she's a black, female, and she doesn't want to come off like the angry black woman. And I get that. But I felt that she missed some opportunities to kind of punch, at the Trump administration, because viewers, we have tapes. We have the tapes from we're talking about, Donald Trump downplaying the pandemic. I mean, we have all the evidence, of them blocking the CDC from, putting out guidelines for wearing masks on public transportation, downplaying their recommendations to that South Dakota meat packaging plant. I mean, we've got all of these things, and I just felt that there were moments to really hammer on what's going on. They kept just spinning things. I mean, I felt like Pence was just trying to do like Donald Trump and just, project, the shortcomings of the Trump administration on Kamala by saying, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. And I'm just like, whoa, I was kind of taken back by that statement, because I'm like, it's it's documented that the Trump administration is over 20,000 lies. So whenever you have somebody like that talking about facts, and you've got Mike Pence, he was the chairman of the Corona Task Force. I think that really should have been the cornerstone of the debate, and really just her moment to just tell America that, hey, you got this guy who said that he was in charge of things, but he also was had no backbone to the president and let Donald Trump do whatever. So yeah, Devin, I don't think that there was to me there wasn't a winner, it wasn't a loser, other than maybe America again, just like the presidential debate. So I hope that both administrations are going to come out of this thing and do better. On to the presidential debate, they were trying to do a virtual debate, which in a virtual climate like the pandemic we're living in would have been okay, would have probably been better and safer. But Donald Trump, said that he didn't want to waste his time on that, and kind of, suggested he wasn't going to do it. So Joe Biden said, I'll just do a town hall. And now the Commission on Presidential Debates has announced that they're not going to do that debate. So it's very unfortunate that happened, but I think that was an opportunity for us to get a round two to kind of see the candidates again, to kind of see what they're going to do. But unfortunately, we're not going to get that until later on down the road, and it's just sad. I mean, I think that there was I saw where in South Carolina there was supposed to be a debate with Jamie Harris and Lindsey Graham, but it got canceled because he asked Lindsey to do a coronavirus test. And I'm just like, I mean, it's silly, Devin. I mean, what do you think about that? Come on.
What it lets me know is that they're honestly scared to find out if one of the Republican senators has COVID-19, because that throws the whole confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett into the air. If, say, if Lindsey Graham tests positive for COVID-19, he can't be there for
he's the chairman of the committee.
He is indeed, and that's why he doesn't want to take it. But it is amazing the world that we're living in now, where people really are, virus deniers in a way. Like, it's just a test. Like, why can't you take it? You're really going to skip an entire debate, an opportunity to talk to your voters, because you don't want to take a coronavirus test, but you want people to go out and get a vaccine. Or you want people to go out and get tested, but you don't want to do it yourself. This is the message we're getting from the people who work in our government. And I think it's petty and childish, too, that Donald Trump doesn't want to participate in a virtual town hall. You just tested positive for coronavirus less than a week ago. Like, come on. I don't get it. And the thing that really I don't understand is that this is not helping him politically. I mean, if you look at the polling numbers, to kind of look at the state of the race, Trump is down 10 points. This is a new poll taken by Pew Research Center, which shows him down 52 to 42%. And even since his virus diagnosis, Biden's lead has actually gotten bigger. It's gotten larger because people, at least I believe, people saw what was happening in the White House and said, this guy does not have this virus under control. He does not know what he's doing. And he's told us multiple times this was just going to go away, and it's not. And then the tough guy image to me doesn't work because it puts you in the hospital, dude. You literally had to go in the hospital to be put on oxygen. If that didn't happen, maybe this would work out. But this thing is nothing to play with. And Trump has a lot of ground to make up. If you look at NPR's electoral map, they have Biden up electorally, 290 electoral votes to Trump's 163. I mean, if you look at an average, if you look at all state polls right now, Biden is leading in 33 states at the moment. And importantly, he's leading, he has a narrow lead in states like Iowa, North Carolina, possibly Georgia, Arizona, and Florida. I mean, the map for Joe Biden is huge. Trump is defending territory all over the country that he didn't necessarily have to defend against, a Hillary Clinton. She was on the defensive and she ended up losing. So Adrian, we see these polls and we Donald Trump slipping in the polls. The lead is 10 plus points now, but we can never really get too comfortable. We still have to show up, at the ballot box and make sure our voices and votes are heard and counted. But again, in 2016, Hillary Clinton has already warned us. You can be ahead in the polls by a lot, but you can still end up losing electorally. Throughout the race in 16, she stayed between 2 and 7 points. It was a little closer right now, in 2016 than it is right now. And Biden's lead has definitely been more steady. It has been consistently 7 to 8 points. Hillary's kind of bounced all over the place. And with the Comey letter that came in October, that's what really threw things over. But we shouldn't write this, cash this check and write it to the bank. I mean, we still have to show up and do our jobs. And vote for whoever you want to, but make sure you show up and vote for your candidate.
You got that right. I mean, it's, I think that either way, with the way this election has gone, as far as Donald Trump throwing so much shade over the process, whoever wins, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I mean, they're going to need like a 2008 Barack Obama win, against John McCain, to where it's just so sweeping, because I think former President Obama won 365 votes. I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to say that there was some fraud going on there. So I mean, I think he was over 10 million votes. So I mean, that's what's going to have to happen either side. Some other election news, though. Thank God for U.S. District Court Judge Robert Pittman for knocking your governor in Texas down.
It's okay.
Just to get onto the news here. Texas judge blocked the order from Governor Greg Abbott about limiting one drop box per county. The judge said this decision was perplexing, particularly since there was already multiple drop-off points per county on election day. There was already going to be satellite drop-off locations. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to why you'd try to do that. If you want people to vote, have multiple drop-off boxes. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So we're really, at least I'm excited. I don't even live in Texas, but I'm excited to see that, because people should be able to vote. We don't need anybody to not vote this election. One of the things that looking like Twitter is actually taking some steps to help us out in the election, because it's becoming clear that we're going to have somewhat of a final result on election night. So you've got some social media platforms that are trying to take a step to kind of curb the misinformation, because we all know 2020 is a year of misinformation. So Twitter users will not be allowed to retweet or reply to tweets with misleading information labeled from U.S. political figures, U.S.-based accounts, more than 100,000 followers, or obtain significant engagement. So it's really good that they're taking some steps. Hopefully Facebook, I think that they've already taken some steps to doing that. We need all of our social media platforms to be doing everything they can to make sure they can curb, misinformation. I wish that there was a way to maybe cancel Donald Trump's, Twitter account, but, free speech, so we can't do that. Devin, that would be one nice thing to be able to do. But, again, we live in democracy, so we gotta let him tweet however much he wants to.
Yeah, we do. There's more misinformation that comes out of that account than anywhere else, probably. We talked last week. I think he was the biggest source of misinformation when it comes to the virus. So that tells you all you need to know. But yeah, so it's wrapping up this part as far as the election and what's happening around the country. In Pennsylvania, so last week we talked about this legislature in Pennsylvania that was trying to create like this commission that was going to almost elect or choose their own electors for the election. But apparently Pennsylvania lawmakers have already decided to drop that effort. They were going to create an election integrity committee before the 2020 election, but they have backpedaled, and House Republicans, the majority leader, actually said that the muddied waters and misunderstanding made it clear that it was the wrong time for the proposal. And he also tried to blame the left and their media allies for halting their plans. So, blame it on everybody else. But, come on. I mean, you got the president talking about election fraud literally every other day. And you thought it was a good idea to create an election integrity committee before an election that's even happened. So you could blame that on yourself. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Just mad that he got caught.
That's all that he's caring about. The fact that they got caught. It's not that they did it. It's just that the left and their media allies drew attention to it and people start calling it into question. So that is going to do it for this section. When we come back after the break, we're going to kind of get into some other news that came out about the FBI. A couple of different things. They brought two British men who were involved with ISIS. They brought them over here to the United States to charge them. And then also they foiled an attempt by some militiamen in Michigan to kidnap the Michigan governor. So we're going to talk about those two stories right after the break. Stick with us. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we're going to kind of get into a couple stories here, really in the kind of, I guess, the foreign policy realm, as we'll say. But the FBI announced on Wednesday morning, this is a big announcement, that they are actually bringing two British men here from the UK, Alexander Cody and El Sheikh. Both are expected to appear in Alexandria, Virginia, federal court remotely, because they are going to be charged with terrorism and murder conspiracy charges. Now, these two gentlemen here were actually involved in the kidnappings and international hostage taking, which included U.S. aid workers Kayla Mueller and Peter Kasich, and then also U.S. journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff. These two men, these two British men, were actually led by another gentleman named Mohammed Emwazi, who is believed to have murdered James Foley, who was a U.S. journalist. He actually beheaded him on video. So you may remember, this was some years ago, there was a video, a really disturbing video that came out of someone who was part of ISIS beheading a U.S. journalist, and they dubbed him the nickname Jihadi John. And so these two gentlemen were being led by Jihadi John, and so they are finally being brought to justice here in 2020. They're going to be charged with murder and terrorism conspiracy charges finally. As for Jihadi John, he was killed by missiles fired from a CIA drone in 2015. So you could say that justice has been served that way, definitely. But these two gentlemen here said that these guys were actually charged or were responsible for 27 killings, including those of James Foley and Stephen Sotloff, the two U.S. journalists, as well as those U.S. British aid workers as well. So, Adrian, we see finally, some justice coming to, the families of Kayla Mueller and Peter Kasich, seeing these two gentlemen brought to justice. Jihadi John, met his maker in 2015. So, it's good news. It's a really awful, tragic story, but it is good to see, some justice be brought. I mean, we've seen this with Osama bin Laden and the al-Baghdadi. Now we get these two gentlemen here to continue to try to, to fight back against what was happening.
Exactly, Devin. I think that's all that really can be said about this story is that it's huge tragedy for all the families involved. But thankful for the justice that's been served, and it's going to be served because we have to have a country that has rules, and you can dislike America, but you can't attack and kill Americans and go without having your justice. On to another story with federal and state authorities out of Michigan. There was a plot to kidnap the Michigan governor, potentially, end her life. I mean, this was a pretty incredible story because I don't know if we've ever had something quite like this, and definitely in my lifetime at least. But you've got 13 people who have been charged. 6 of these suspects face federal charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping and were arrested on Wednesday. The 6 are accused of plotting to kidnap Whitmer at her vacation home and place her on trial for treason before the November election. And I mean, it's crazy, Devin, because I mean, you definitely have people who are taking cues from Donald Trump in some sort of way. I get that maybe they had their own motives and things, but you had him, tweeting "Liberate Michigan." I mean, viewers, you got to remember that Michigan was, they had their state capital, protesters were there with rifles and things. I mean, it's been pretty hostile there. 7 more people were linked to a militia group, the Wolverine Watchmen. I mean, it's these militia groups, Devin, we definitely have seen them on the rise. Definitely, I feel, due to the rhetoric from President Trump, where he told the Proud Boys to stand back, stand by. There's a lot of people who feel that they have to kind of stand by and almost raise arms against their own elected officials because they think that, whatever their elected officials did during the coronavirus pandemic, forcing them to close down, forcing them to wear a mask was too much. And they think that they're going to try to steal the election to continue this sort of tyranny upon them. It's crazy, Devin, that you've got this going on when, Governor Whitmer was just trying to save people, trying to make sure that hospitals weren't overrun, ICU beds weren't, at capacity, making sure that, people could just live. But you've got a lot of militia groups who are trying to, kidnap and possibly end her life.
Yeah, I mean, it's what the FBI has been warning about when they say that, I'm not going to say that they're white nationalists, but white nationalism and white supremacy are the biggest threat domestically that the United States has. I mean, when you give the okay and the go-ahead for these militia groups to, quote, liberate Michigan, this is the after effects. Those tweets have real-world consequences when you speak up these things, I mean, these guys here, there's 7 of them. You mentioned them. Part of that Wolverine Watchmen group, like these guys were literally, they're accused of trying to find the home addresses of law enforcement officers to target them. And then they were also making threats of violence intended to instigate a civil war. And they were, like you say, they were planning to attack the Michigan Capitol and kidnap government officials. I mean, like, this is domestic terrorism. They're not a militia group. Mm-hmm. They're a terrorist group. If they were Muslim people who were supporting ISIS, you would see terrorism all over the headlines. But
Yes,
instead,
exactly.
you're seeing militiamen. No, they're terrorists. They're domestic terrorists. They've taken it entirely too far. You can not agree with the legislation and the rules and the restrictions that Governor Whitmer has put forward, but this is not the way to do it. But Donald Trump has not distinctly condemned these sorts of actions. And the people who think this way and want to do things like this, he tells them to stand back and stand by instead of just denouncing them outright.
Didn't he tweet after all the after the attorney general and everybody was talking about it? I think he tweeted something at Michigan, kind of saying that the governor's done a terrible job and she needs to open up, almost reaffirming what the militiamen are doing instead of saying we need to bring this to justice. We don't need this to happen to any of our governors or any of our state legislatures. I mean, this is such a interesting story. I mean, I think that I saw on the news another legislator from Michigan just saying that they just really feel threatened. I mean, Devin, think about this. You've got the Trump, team trying to stir up a lot of different, violence in a bunch of states. What if you have other militia groups who go to, Mississippi's capital or go to, California's capital or go to wherever and just try to say, we're going to kidnap you and we're going to hold you hostage. We're going to put you on trial. Like, what is that? I mean, you have no authority on any sort of level to abduct a person and put them on trial because you don't believe in what they're trying to do. That's just crazy. I mean, that's what you had with Ahmaud Arbery, Georgia. You've got people just trying to take law enforcement into their own hands and make the laws, fit the situation. It's a dangerous game we're running into here. And I'm glad that the local and state authorities kind of nip this in the bud, because who knows, had they been able to proceed, who knows how far they would have gone.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. I mean, had they done this, what if other groups saw this and wanted to do something like this? What if they connected with other groups to take down or kidnap other, Democratic governors that they didn't agree with, or Democratic mayors that they didn't agree with in cities? There's no end to things like this when you turn up the temperature like Donald Trump has and is giving these folks a free pass. They're not patriots. They are domestic terrorists, and we need to stop, giving them a green light, stop supporting them. But that's the problem when you have a president who has trouble condemning white supremacists and white militia groups. I mean, that's the problem. That's what happens when you idolize somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse and say that what he did was patriotic and he was just defending the streets of his hometown or something to that effect. This is what you get. The next step is, like you say, they're going to take the law into their own hands and make, and they're going to try to enact their own type of justice. And in this case, hold her on trial for treason. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, one of the things that I think Donald Trump, at his rally at the White House is going to be talking about the need for, Black communities to respect law enforcement and to kind of bridge the gap there. But I mean, you could have had a moment to talk about this, talk about the need that, citizens don't need to be law enforcement. Citizens don't need to be judges and juries unless you're called on jury duty. I don't understand why he misses every opportunity to be presidential. I mean, it's just like this guy wakes up and just like thinks, how can I screw up America? Like, I just don't understand, how he can not just easy, just low hanging fruit, of an opportunity to just say, come out and say, hey, I know I buffled, condemning these, white nationalist group and these, militia groups who are trying to do anarchy. But hey, we're going to condemn this. We're going to work with their law enforcement to make sure that these people aren't doing this in any state of in the country. But no, he doesn't do any of that. I'm thankful November 3rd is coming, but stories like this are definitely unnerving, which kind of leads us into the other story. Devin, I'll let you go into it because it's coming out of your state.
It's a lot going on here in Texas, but yeah. So the other, another tragic story again. Another black man killed here in Texas at the hands of police. This time it happened in Wolf City, Texas, where Officer Sean Lucas has already been charged with the murder of Jonathan Price. And so right now they have an affidavit that says, to kind of set the scene, when Officer Lucas arrived they were at a convenience store. Officer Lucas arrived there, and Jonathan Price greeted the officer when he arrived, and he asked the officer several times, you're doing good, you're okay. And Jonathan Price even extended his hand in a handshake gesture towards the officer and apologized for some broken glass that was on the ground. And the affidavit goes on to say that the officer thought Jonathan Price was intoxicated, and he tried to detain Price. And then Price said, "I can't be detained," and walked away when the officer produced a stun gun. Now, we've seen this before with Jacob Blake. The stun gun did not work in this case. And Jonathan Price approached the officer, and it appears that Price actually reached out to grab, at least the affidavit says, Jonathan Price reached out to grab the stun gun, and that is when Officer Sean Lucas fired 4 times, shooting Price in the upper torso. Jonathan Price was pronounced dead at the hospital, and right now his funeral arrangements were today, looks like, at Wolf City High School football field. And right now, like I say, Sean Lucas, the officer for Wolf City, has already been charged with the murder of Price. He has a $1 million bond, with his attorney claiming the officer shot because Price was attempting to take Lucas's stun gun. Now, Jonathan Price's family attorney says the electrical current made Jonathan Price's body convulse, and then that was the perceived threat that that made Sean Lucas shoot Jonathan Price. And here's just a note here. Sean Lucas, the officer, he's younger than both me and Adrian. He's 22. He has been an officer for a little less than 6 months when the shooting took place. In his previous job he worked as a jailer for 5 months. So, Adrian, you see, again, a tragic situation, but something that we haven't seen before. We've this year has been pretty unrelenting with the stories here, and it's really just another sad situation. It looks like, the family says his body convulsed when he supposedly reached for the officer's stun gun. But, you have a young officer who may be a little bit inexperienced, may not know necessarily how to handle that situation, and he ended up shooting Mr. Price 4 times.
And I think it definitely goes into that. I don't know of Lucas's, biases towards black people or anything like that, but I definitely think when you look at the fact that he's 22, it's really, really young age to be an officer. And you look at the fact that it's less than 6 months, and his only prior experience was as a jailer. And I've never worked as a jailer, and I don't know if it was a male or female jail, but I know jails are pretty rough environments, and you can build some perceptions, I guess, of the people that you're working with over those 5 years. That when you get out of being a jailer and you get on the streets and you start patrolling, you may start, trying to implement some of those tactics you had in jail on regular people. I don't know. Like I said, I can't speculate. It wasn't there, but just looking at all the facts and looking at situations, I definitely think it just takes me back to what Officer Nicole Walton was saying to us, Devin, in our interview, is that you got a lot of these rookie officers who don't really even know much about life. I mean, I understand we're very young, but 22. I mean, that's a rural young time officer, particularly when I don't know how long it takes to go through training to be an officer in Texas. I can't remember, but I know it wasn't very extensive. I think it's less than being a cosmetologist. Not to discredit that industry, but I'm just saying that law enforcement should be really, really thoroughly trained. So again, another tragedy. Viewers, we hate to have a segment that kind of talks about some heavy news, but 2020, again, it's just such a chaotic year. We're hopeful that, 2021 is going to come in guns blazing, blessings raining down on everybody. Or
no pun intended there, but
yeah, no pun intended for sure. Not like coronavirus blessing, because that's not a blessing at all. But we need some true action from the next administration. So with that, we're going to take our last break here, and we're going to bring you with some quick hits. Remember, this could be some bits of news that you may or may not have heard. So we're going to take a break, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, welcome back. So we're gonna finish up the show like we always do with some quick hits, which are stories from around the country, some funny, some not, things that you may have missed during the week, some news. So we like to leave you with a little bit of quick news here. So our very first story is going to start off with Yelp. So the company Yelp announced on Thursday they have actually been planning and have been doing already. They're adding alerts to the pages of businesses that have been accused of racism. Now, according to NPR, the company said it would only add this alert to a business page when there's a resounding evidence of egregious racist actions from a business owner or employee. And this would include such behavior as using overtly racist slurs or symbols. The company, I'm sorry, I don't know why that's funny to me, but the company said the alert will require a news article from a credible media outlet, and then it will link the article with the accompanying notice and everything like that. So they've actually been placed about 450 of these type of public attention alerts on business pages that have either been accused of or the target of racist behavior. And they've been doing this since the end of May to about September. So now on Yelp, you may actually come upon a business that has been accused of being racist.
Which it's not funny because racism is not a good thing, but it's interesting that you've got Yelp taking such a stand. I mean, you may have like Uber and DoorDash and Postmates doing the same. You never know. On to a little bit of interesting news. So apparently, while getting ready to go to Provo, Utah, there was a fight that broke out on the Allegiant aircrafter. Apparently, there was this guy that he had some sort of face cover. He had a face shield. But the airline Allegiant, their policy says, you can have a face shield, but that doesn't take the place of an actual face cover. You need to kind of have both. So this gentleman just did not want to do that. There were some jabs, exchanged between him and another guy. Seems like the fight lasted for about 30 seconds. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Looks like Riley Langsford captured the video. So she called it pretty insane, absolutely insane, actually, because you got people fighting because somebody doesn't want to put on a mask. It's just so sad that we live in a world that just doesn't want to put on a mask. Fortunately, that guy that did not put on the mask was escorted off of the plane by a flight attendant. So if you're going to fly, wear a mask, please.
And don't fight anybody. What are you doing? Throwing bows
Everybody's just
over
trying to
some
get.
mask.
Hey, people are probably just trying to go home to their families.
Goodness. Our next story here is going to be probably the world's most expensive toilet. With a price tag at $23 million, NASA is getting ready to send a $23 million titanium toilet to the International Space Station. Now, the toilet clocks in at about 100 pounds and is 28 inches tall, which makes it roughly as big as the two Russian-built toilets that currently are on board the International Space Station. With the smaller size, it would be fitted into the NASA Orion capsules that will carry the astronauts to the moon in a couple of years. So the station residents, the International Space Station residents, will get to test it out for a few months, and then it will be open, kind of what they call for regular business. Fortunately, the toilet is made better for female astronauts. The old toilets cater more towards men, and to make it more female friendly, NASA tilted the seat and made it taller to help astronauts position themselves a bit better. So there you go, Adrian, the world's most expensive toilet, probably.
Yeah, I know that's going to be interesting there. At least it's money going to level the playing field with the gender, making sure that we're catering to females. So that's at least there's that. And some other good news. We got J.P. Morgan Chase saying that they're going to kind of put some money behind racial equality. So they said on Thursday that they're going to extend, I think, about $30 billion in loans to Black and Latino home buyers and small business owners in an effort to kind of extend that racial equality gap to kind of help with systemic racism. J.P. Morgan, which has looks like 3.2 trillion assets. Yeah, a large number of money there, people. If you don't know, trillion, not billion. But it says that they're going to do about $30 billion to help finance 40,000 additional mortgages for Black and Latinos, another 20,000 loans that will refinance mortgages and help construct over 100,000 affordable rental units. Additional funds will go towards financing 15,000 small business loans to Black and Latino-owned businesses. So I hope that they commit to this and that they, I don't know if this is they already started, putting money into this thing, but I hope that this is something that's going to actually happen and not just some fluff.
Yeah, that's, definitely putting your money where your mouth is. So hopefully that actually does come to fruition. So our next quick hit is coming out of Ohio, where it's election time, so people are hyper aware of what's going on with mail-in ballots. But apparently, in Ohio, there were 50,000 ballots that were incorrectly mailed to voters, and the election officials announced this on Friday. So there were about 240,000 ballots that had initially been mailed out, and then 50,000 actually went to the incorrect places. Some of the ballots had incorrect congressional race information. Others had the correct information, but they were sent to the wrong voters in a different precinct. The Ohio Board of Elections, has said it will mail postcards to all of the affected voters, explaining the situation and kind of giving them their options of going forward, which include possibly voting in person at the board's offices. But of course, Donald Trump caught wind of this on Twitter, screaming voter fraud. And actually, I think the Ohio elections board retweeted his tweet and said that, Mr. President, this was an honest mistake, and they're going to fix it. This is not symbolic of larger scale voter fraud. So the president doesn't care. He just saw 50,000 ballots and is going to scream voter fraud to the top of his lungs. So there you have it. Just a little bit.
I was almost hesitant, Devin, of us even having this on the script because somebody might be thinking we're trying to talk about voter fraud. But again, go back to the Ohio election officials. It was just an honest error. Yes. They're correcting it. They're making sure that everybody gets their ballots, making sure everybody's voices are heard, everybody's votes are counted. On to the last little bit of quick hit nugget here. This is actually a really interesting story, Devin, and I hope that this is something that actually happens for every country because I love dogs. So apparently in Helsinki Airport, which is in Finland, they're doing coronavirus testing using dogs. So basically, passengers, when they get off the plane, instead of doing nasal swab tests, they can have one or two dogs sniff their sweat. And I don't know the process. I didn't really get into the science of how the sweat is different as far as being able to know if you got COVID or not. But apparently, the test only takes about a minute. If the dog does detect the virus within your sweat, you're sent to the health center for additional testing. Some research is even suggesting that this test might be more effective than the chain reaction or the antibody testing that we have right now. Apparently, it doesn't take very long for dogs to be trained how to do this. Some are even able to catch on to this ability within about 7 minutes. So it's really, interesting, Devin, that we may have some canine coronavirus detectors, rolling out. Because you could have dogs in schools, nursing homes, public gatherings, different things like that. Finland is, projecting to do about 700 to 1,000 dogs to kind of further the program. So be on the lookout for that, people, because hey, you might can train your dog to, lick or sniff sweat and detect coronavirus.
I tell you, man, 2020 never disappoints. That is one thing I never expected to ever read or hear about. Is dogs sniffing people to detect coronavirus. We need to send them to the White House immediately.
That's right, and because apparently Donald Trump doesn't want the CDC to do contact tracing. Maybe he'll let dogs come in.
Maybe. But that is a very, very cool story coming out of Finland. So that's going to do it, everybody, for our ninth. This is our weekly roundup number 9. I think this is the live show number 5 or 6, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But again, we love to bring you all the news from the past week. Again, make sure you put your comments in the comment section. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about. Let us know if there's something you think we missed that we could maybe add to the show. We're always looking for ways to improve what we're doing. So again, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Black Agenda Pod. It's right at the very top there. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to music and podcasts, you can find the Black Agenda Podcast. So yeah, Adrian, you can tell us where they can donate to us and kind of help us out.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to be more than just a podcast. We're definitely going to be moving the ball forward. If you'd like to donate to us, you can go to patron.podbean/Black Agenda Pod. Again, that's Patron, which is PATRON. .podbean/Black Agenda Pod. We would love to be able to get your donation, looking to be able to give educational scholarships, partner with other nonprofits, lobby congressional leaders for different policy and legislation. Can't do that with just, viewers. We need dollars to do that. So we'd love to convert you to a donor to make this mission become a reality for everybody. So yeah, don't forget to do that. Again, patron.podbean/Black Agenda Pod. Don't forget, on Podbean, Google, all the different, directories, listen to us. We'll be coming out with a bunch of different episodes. Mm-hmm. Devin, I don't even have the schedule pulled up, but you may have it pulled up. You can tell, I think we got a couple coming out about, gun violence and mandatory voting. We got a lot of discussions and things like that. So there's plenty of different ways, viewers, for you to be engaged with us other than just doing the weekly roundups.
Yeah, we're going to have some interesting conversations. I think we're speaking to someone from the state of Washington about the Second Amendment and being a gun owner and being a female gun owner. We're going to kind of dig into all that and what that means. Oh, yeah. We're also going to be hopefully talking to someone about the possibility of mandatory voting and what that would look like, what that would, if that's something the U.S. should look at. And also look out for our live discussions. We like to hit hot topics and bring you all in and speak with us directly. So we'll be putting all that up on our social media. So make sure you keep an eye out and see what we're doing and listen to us and support us. We're just trying to get the conversation started here. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And one last thing. Hey, if you would like to help us as a social media contributor, yes, we would love to be able to have you as that. We have people all over the country who are contributing to our social media pages. Doesn't take a whole lot other than, posting once a week, and then we kind of work from there. But we're always looking to, network and connect with other people, because we know that some of our viewers and our listeners are active in their communities about spreading the same news that we're doing, trying to do the same missions that we're doing. So if you'd like to help us out in that way, we'd love to be able to have you. just, direct message us on, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we'll get you on board.
Yep. So as always, we'll catch you guys next time. Thank y'all for watching.